and many of us haven't experienced before. So, I hope everybody that is experiencing those fires and experiencing that, I hope you guys are staying safe and staying well. It's not an easy thing to deal with. And I could just imagine what it is like to be like at ground zero where those things are taking places and, people's houses and lives are at risk. So my thoughts are with anybody that is dealing with that up in Canada. So stay well. I do have some Canadian friends. So cheers to all of you up there. And so I do want to acknowledge the Buffalo Fireside family. Great to have you guys. And thank you for your support. The channel's growing. I love it. So let's just keep it going. So what I want to do here, I want to talk about Dddx. So, we talked about Dddx for, I've had Nick Coriano, the vice president, on multiple times, but let's bring up the security details for Dddx. And here we go. We got, sorry, I literally, like, it is like my throat's been burning like for the last like day just because of the smoke in the air. And it's like, what the hell's going on? So bear with me. They're sitting at 3 cents. All right. They have a market cap of 3.2 million, authorized share count of 175 million, and their outstanding share count is under 100 million. What I like about this company is that they have more restricted locked up than unrestricted. Well, there's a lot more that I like about this company than the share structure. And that's what I like about what we do here at the BFC. It's more about the security details and the share price. It's about the people behind the company. So, and they have a nice float of 44 million. So yeah, we're going to talk Dddx. We're going to have this new segment. It's going to be called the Buffalo Roundtable. All right. And that's what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be bringing in a bunch of people and we're going to share our thoughts and we're going to share information because that's what this is all about when we invest in stocks, when we invest in people, we want to make sure we're spreading positivity and we want to be real at the same time. And we want to spread authentic information. So that way we're getting good information. That's what this is all about. So today I'm going to have on Roger Jansen, the CEO of 3DX Industries. I'm going to have the head of acquisitions, Harold Blackwell, on, and I'm going to have, hopefully, if he can make it here, Nicholas Coriano from the vice president. He's been on the show multiple times, and I'm also going to have Jord Hugga, the great Jord Hugga. So, if you've been following me, Jord's been on the show multiple times. So, and you know what? I think Nick just got in that waiting room. So we're going to roll with this. Let's get to our first session, I should say, of the Buffalo Roundtable. Let's get to this. Gentlemen, welcome. How you guys doing?
Eric, great to see you. Good evening. Thank you.
Doing good.
How's it going, Eric?
Nick just made it.
Just made it.
Looking cooler than ever, too.
Cool as a cucumber. What's up?
He's been running, so.
I've been running. I want to start the show by saying thank you, man. I appreciate you for doing this for us, man. We really appreciate it. And if anyone's watching and anyone's in the Seattle area, we are having our annual shareholders meeting. I know Eric, I'll jump ahead. And if you're in Seattle, Ferndale area, come by Friday. This Friday, we're having the annual shareholders meeting open to everybody, existing shareholders, potential shareholders. So come on by. But thank you, Eric. Just want to say that.
Yeah, right on. And Roger, you're in the Washington area now, right?
Seattle touch. Yep. Our air is crystal clear here.
And I was gonna ask you that because as I'm and this is really driving home to me because experiencing just this, what we have here going on, I could just imagine what it would be like to be close to places like California that experience this type of thing all the time. So my question for you is, do you guys ever experience residual smoke in Washington from that? Or, I mean, because this is pretty tough. I could just imagine what it's like to be on the front lines of that.
Eric, it does happen. A few years ago, there was a lot of Canadian wildfires and some here in Washington State, and we had a smoke situation very similar to yours. I can feel for you. And we have a lot of trees, and when it's dry, it's like we're gonna have a dry season. You have fire, and I know what you're going through. So I want to say I want everybody to come to the west to the shareholders meeting because the air is crystal clear right now.
You heard it. Now, Harold, you are here with us. You have full internet, man. How you doing? And welcome. We missed each other last time, but welcome to BFC.
Yeah, fantastic. It's a pleasure to be back, Eric, and it's a pleasure to reconnect with my 3DX family. And no, I am not in my vehicle. We're all good.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, like I said, it's good to have you. And Jord, what's up, brother?
Yeah, I'm just hoping that my internet in my truck does hold up, but happy to be a part of the roundtable.
You know, and George's up there in Washington too. And anytime he does come on the BFC, I got to give this cat credit, man. You know, to share his knowledge, share his experience, you know, in trading and investing. He drives like an hour off the mountain to make sure he gets internet. And I swear, this guy
appreciate it, man.
George, where are you at?
Walla Walla.
Oh, love Walla Walla. Yeah.
That's good stuff. So Dddx, 3DX Industries. I'm going to turn this over to you guys. You know, for those out there that have not heard of this play yet, this is one I've been sort of pounding the table on. There's a lot of potential here. I love the share structure. I love the enthusiasm behind the management. I'm going to turn this over to you. You guys talk 3DX. I mean, there's so much potential here. So Roger, why don't you take it away, man?
All right. Well, I'll give you a little rundown for, I haven't been on for a while. One of the shows here, I know Nick's been on, and Harold. Additive manufacturing, 3D metal printing, specifically binder jet 3D metal printing, is at a rate right now is a 55% combined annual growth rate. It's like blowing up right now. Your major manufacturers are taking the process. The machine manufacturers, of course, you're seeing these mergers and acquisitions going on. They're making a powerhouse of guys that are building machines and equipment for the process we've been using for 10 years. See, we were an early adopter in that process. We took a chance, and we rolled the dice early on. It took a few years to get this thing figured out, but it's good. And it's going to be a great way to manufacture complex, critical parts at a great price with a good profit margin. So that's the basis of our goals, to take advantage of this low-hanging fruit that's going to be here for years to come. As this technology is adopted by all the new industries that are saying, oh, what's this plastic printing? Oh, we can make parts out of metal? Oh, who does that? Well, west of the Mississippi, there's not too many people right yet that are doing our process. And, you know, there's a lot more conglomeration in the Midwest and the East, but the market with that 55% CAG, it's not an issue at all. There's plenty of work for everybody, and we're excited about the future.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, I think they're underestimating that growth, that potential growth, because, you know, 55% growth is, we're talking about what they're doing now in metal 3D printing, and not really what they can usurp from the manufacturing process. So, you know, I would think that number, kind of like the internet, right? Before, you know, they would say, you know, the internet's growing at a certain rate, not realizing how much it was really going to eclipse the world, and, you know, really what it was going to do. So I just actually retweeted something about a couple hours ago that said top 10 industries that are growing in America, and 3D printing's right there with, you know, SaaS, and here, I'll give you guys the list of peer-to-peer lending, CBD, product many, investment banking and security, subprime auto mortgages, 3D printing. These are the fastest growing industries. And some of those other ones on the list are pretty archaic, right? So that's what excited me about 3D printing, not just how fast it was growing, but really the potential to make anything, which sounds crazy, but when you talk about the manufacturing process and, you know, building a part, which is pretty boring in all senses of the word, right? A component of, you know, a car, a component of a submarine, a component of a plane. But then when you start talking about, you know, medical devices, components, you know, I just went to the hospital for my daughter, and we were talking about how the doctor told me, oh, you know, they 3D printed a special part for the back of somebody. So, you know, you start getting into these avenues where I think they haven't even really touched on yet. You know, as Roger mentioned, the industry's consolidating right now. There's a bid right now on Stratus. You know, it's a $1 billion bid trying to buy the company. They're waging a war between Desktop Metal and I forget the other company that
3D
just put
Systems.
3D Systems just put a bid on these guys. And the truth is, we're in that phase. I like to compare 3D printing to what happened in the boom days of the internet, right? The boom days of the internet bubble boomed, and then it came crashing down, and it kind of consolidated, and what was left was the Amazons of the world, the eBays of the world, these companies now that run the roost, right? Googles of the world. These all came out of that boom and bust cycle, and that's exactly what's happening in the 3D printing sector. There's a big boom. You know, people saw the stock valuations go up. Now we're in a consolidation mode, and the last players standing are going to be true leaders. And I'm just happy to be a part of guys that are still standing, right? We're still here. We're still growing. We're still moving. So we're excited for what's coming.
Nick, to add a little bit of clarity to that, a few weeks ago, I gave a presentation to the University of Washington engineering students. They have a 3D printing club, and I was invited down there. They're a great group. There was probably 35 kids there. And the interesting thing is that, you know, about 10 years ago, America raised a bunch of money with the government to stimulate manufacturing in the United States. They're responsible for putting a plastic desktop printer in every school almost in North America. Well, these engineers now, they grew up around a plastic printer, but their introduction to metal is like happening right now. And they look at these and they're like, we understand additive manufacturing, we know 3D printed parts, and they were so engaged. I think there was like 35 there, probably because they're young. I think 85% of them were super engaged. The other 15% weren't paying attention. I think they were going to be stockbrokers or something. So
that's interesting. Yeah, to add to layer to that, in America we classify most industries under NAICS code, NAICS code, right? So when you do your taxes, if you ever owned a business and you do your taxes, in the top corner it says what's your industry code classification, what's your NAICS code, and additive manufacturing just became a NAICS code. So to let you guys know how new this industry is, it didn't even have a classification 10 years ago, right? So I want to say it was in the last 5 years that NAICS code actually came out, which is a big deal because it's basically saying, look, this industry's here. It's not going anywhere. It's here to stay, and it's going to be woven into the fabric of America. So that's exciting, you know?
Yeah, one of the machines actually that we bought from GE Power in North Carolina, Shrikant, the engineer there, they used that machine to develop energy turbine blades that they were developing for the government that should just be, as we speak, hitting those NAICS codes. And if you don't have a binder jet 3D metal printer, you can't quote on the job because that's going to be a requirement.
You know what it reminds me of, and I'll kick it back to Eric. You ever seen the little tube, the little bottle with the ship inside, and you're like, how did they put that ship inside that bottle, right? I still wonder that question, by the way. That's what 3D printing is like, because when you realize what you can make, right, you can literally have a box that's totally enclosed, and inside there's a village of people that was printed inside. That's impossible with traditional manufacturing. So now a lot of people are going to ask, well, what's the application? What do I need that for? Well, nothing. You don't need a box with a village inside, right? But when you talk about, pistons, there you go. Look, here's a perfect example of something that, right, there is an app. What is that, Roger?
That's a turbine rotor. It's cut in half. It's to show the details, because without the additive manufacturing, you could maybe figure out how to manufacture it, but the cost would be so high, nobody would be able to afford to put it into their units. But that's the beauty of the process, which is very similar to why the rocket engine guys, Musk and Bezos, love 3D metal printers, because they can print rocket nozzles for the first time in history. They can run hotter, they can carry less fuel, they can get more power out of them, and there's no other way to make them besides 3D printers.
There is a heavy investment in education, especially with 3D printers. My district alone, where I teach, I was talking to one of the gentlemen, and he's like, yeah, we have like 100 3D printers. Now, granted, they've been starting this, about 5 years ago with the plastic printers, but it's just a matter of time where we're going to have, and Roger, because I know in our conversation before, when we talk about the investment in vocational centers for these printers, this is where it's going. There's a heavy investment in the education sector, not only in the college and collegiate levels, but in high schools, even in middle schools. They're learning to do these 3D printing projects. And the cool thing is, though, even the waste from these machines you could still reuse, and that's a brilliant thing too. So a little bit more about that, because you did tell us a little bit about that. If you know what I'm trying to say about that vocational center.
I like to tote this book. It's called The Great Disruption. Now, this is talking about this next wave of industrial revolution. It's written by Rick Smith and Mitch Free, which I happen to know both of them. They're involved in additive manufacturing. They're heavy into manufacturing. They go through, and they go all the way through history. And through history, there's several points in times, like the addition of the train, the car, the telephone. There's certain inventions or processes that happened historically that made a huge advantage, and most of them allowed the average common guy to be able to purchase things at a price that most people, only the elite, could afford. That's what Henry Ford did with the cars. He brought those cars down to a price that changed the world. And a lot of people say, well, I'm sidetracking here, a little bit of analogy that's interesting, because they're like, oh, we got to get in with the first 3D metal printer, or who's this or who's that. At the turn of the century, of the 20th century, there was over 700 car manufacturers, 123 years ago. And how could you pick which one was going to win? What happened? Consolidation. Well, somebody made a joke into it and said, all you could do if you wanted to pick a winner was short sell the horse.
Let me give a couple shouts out to John Don, Brian, Queen West. Welcome to BFC there in the comment section. And I do want to get to some of your questions. Brian did ask, what is the share structure? Then I have the share structure right here. Share structure is this. They're saying at 3 cents, market cap 3.2 million, authorized share count 175 million, outstanding share count of under 100 million, with most of those shares being restricted. All right, 54 to 44 million and a 44 million float. So that answers your question right there.
That float is a little lower. We own some of that float too. So we definitely, the employees are definitely buying that float. So keep that in mind.
I love seeing those restricted shares, and I like seeing people invest in themselves, and that's awesome when I see that kind of conviction. I do want to, and I have a bunch of questions. And I'm sure you guys do too. And actually, let's get to one of the questions, because I do have a question for Harold in a second. And Kelly O'Neill, what's up? Unboxing bastard, always good to have you. So this is probably a very contingent based on the part, but John Don did have a question. What is the approximate profit margin on the average part manufactured? So, the average of it, what would you say?
Manufactured subtractive or with additive?
Additive, I think he's asking.
Additive. Okay, it's an additive based question. I just wanted.
So, by the way, for anybody listening, additive means 3D printing, right? So a lot of people don't know that, but go ahead.
No, let me preface that a little bit by in subtractive machining, when you're making a part, if you're running a 20% net profit, you're a rock star. A lot of companies don't even run that tight. If you're like perfect, you may get 35%. From our records of printing parts, and we've actually recently run the numbers on this and looked at the margins on all the jobs. We're running over 60% net profit. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot. The technology is easier to use. When you hire a machinist, you have to have a guy that's highly skilled. Not that we don't need some skilled people on the print lab, but we can run. Actually, as I'm speaking, that machine's been running for 3 hours and nobody stood in front of it right now. It's running in the other room behind me.
And I'll put up
the beauties of it.
I'll put up a picture actually of what they're making. They're making some objects, some tokens for the annual shareholder meeting, and Roger sent me a picture. So after we get off here, I'll post it on 3DX Twitter. So if you guys all head over to 3DX Twitter on June 7th, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, you'll see exactly what Roger's talking about.
Rock and roll. That 60%. That's impressive, man. Seriously. Harold, now that you're here, I could say.
Yes, sir.
So now there was a position created for you for acquisitions. I want you to talk a little bit about your role in 3DX. I mean, there's nothing that gets the OTC really excited than acquisitions and the fact that you have the potential to add value to 3DX industry. So explain your role and what you sort of where you see the future taking you here, sir.
Absolutely. So thanks so much, Eric. So the role I initially had when I first joined this great company was leading and heading up acquisitions. And so that focus was with regard to acquiring smaller shops, almost looking at it as of doing bolt-ons and add-ons to the platform company of 3DX Industries. And since then, it's actually morphed into taking on another hat and helping with regard to business development in the government sector, but still having the focus of also looking at potential acquisitions and opportunities. Because again, that's the way to accelerate growth is buying up other companies and businesses that already have infrastructure, established customer base, and also the human capital in place.
So yeah, absolutely. And do you see yourself? And I'm this is directed towards Harold, because your acquisitions, but this is sort of to all you guys too. Really maximizing the return on the acquisitions that you're setting out to achieve. And I'm just going to say and I'm not going to say, you guys do have a beautiful share structure. And I know based on previous conversations with Nick, you want to do everything to make sure you retain that share structure, especially when acquiring. Do you guys, and I'm just whimming this right now. So are you looking for those companies, and do you see yourself retaining that nice share structure while retaining profitable companies with a customer base, a strong customer base, and somebody that, companies that have a steady team behind them as well, where the turnover rate, we're not inheriting a company that has a turnover rate where you're replacing people constantly. So tell me a little bit about like how you see it positively affecting maybe the share structure.
So I'll take this one. So right now we're really focused on pure play in-house additive manufacturing. Not saying that acquisitions have taken a back seat. Me and Harold look at acquisitions every day. They come into our inbox every day. But we're really focused on organic growth. If we do an acquisition, it'll definitely have, almost little to no effect on the cap structure. The last acquisition that didn't really pan out for us was structured in a way that really wouldn't affect our market cap at all, because it was a note payable. So me and Harold are confident that, if we shop acquisitions, or if we find the right company, we're not going to affect the cap structure, because a good acquisition, you don't need to bleed out by paying through shares, right? Because a good acquisition will spit out enough cash that we can buy it with the cash that it's spitting out. Now, acquisitions are easy in theory. They're really easy in a textbook. They're a little bit more difficult in real life. Acquisitions are actually easy. It's integration that's hard. And, it's one of the challenges that we've had. But I like to think of acquisitions in two ways. One is acquiring whole businesses, and one is acquiring top talent. And we've been in acquisition mode, acquiring top talent since the beginning. And we continue to do that, from, material scientists and Peter Devone, a chemical engineer, to Harold with his background in government contracting. Roger has a few other names over there on the machine shop side that we definitely acquired. But, right now, if we do an acquisition, it'll be healthy enough that it wouldn't affect the cap structure.
Right on. That's amazing. That's what I want to hear as a shareholder. Yes, I am a shareholder. George's a shareholder. We're shareholders.
We're all shareholders.
Yeah, we are all shareholders here. So, I'm rooting for you guys 100%. I want to see this thing take off, because especially, I know like the first time we talked, it was a couple months back. I had you on the show, Nick, and you and I went out for an hour, 40 minutes. It was a great podcast. And if you want some good information, yeah, I started off our relationship by telling him that he has motivational thumbs on Twitter, which is pretty funny, actually. But
I love that. I'm trying to throw a couple more jokes on Twitter. I think people are getting bored of the motivation, so I'm gonna throw a few more jokes in there.
I forgot what you said the other day, but it was pretty damn funny. but no, but we talked about the government contracts, and I brought that up, and you said that was definitely something. So to see Harold step into that role with his experience, I'm excited to hear about that. And like I said, when you hear and I hate to say just OTC, but in general, in companies and investing, whether you're on the NASDAQ or wherever you are, when you hear government contracts and things aligning with like the DOD or like the Department of Education or anything related like that, that's huge for investors. And sometimes that's a green flag that says these guys are doing something right. So you guys obviously want to position yourself accordingly. So I gotta ask Roger, pinball? Tell us a little bit about that. I was laughing, and you saw my tweet.
Pinball.
Yes. So
this actually, what's interesting about this? It's interesting you brought this up, Eric. This is a large 3D printed pinball paddle that was given to me by a company called Planetary Pinball Supply. And it was a local show, and I make sure when there's something that's interesting that's in my neighborhood, I'm there. I'm handing out cards. I'm talking to people. I'm meeting people. I want to understand the industries. And looking a little bit more into it, is the pinball industry huge? No, but it's about 50 million a year. And there's still a lot of brand new pinball machines made. A lot are being repaired. There's a lot of parts that have been around for a long time. I get a call today out of the blue from the CEO of Planetary Pinball Supply named Rick, because I handed out, we have a little van that we hand out. I had a metal printed van. When I go somewhere, I'm handing stuff out like candy. It's metal printed parts. And he goes, we use a lot of 3D printed plastic parts. He says they have the rights to all the Williams and Bally's pinballs in the world to repair parts and make new ones. And he says, we've never thought about metal printed parts. He says, I'm very intrigued with this. And that's how that starts. Is it going to be as big customer as Boeing? Probably not, but it's going to be a great customer. We're starting that relationship, and they're excited to look at things they can do with metal that supports their machines. But it's an interesting, I've never been to a pinball convention before. If there's one in your neighborhood, it was a lot of fun.
You sort of look like you've never been to a pinball convention before.
I actually met the pinball wizard. He was there.
Yeah, that was funny, and I said it's like, you know, there's the pinball convention going on, and then instead of where's Waldo, it's like where's Roger Jansen, and then like there you are right in the front. No, but the kudos to you, because that's kind of network thing that you need. And who would think that, like, and this is the thing, a pinball company isn't going to buy a metal printer because they're a lot of freaking money, and so then they go to 3DX Industries and are able to print some of these parts that are discontinued possibly, and so. It's not even just like about the revenue at that point. That is just pure uniqueness right there.
Well, I think, you know, I want to add on to that. You know, there's a famous quote in business say there's riches and niches, you know, so there's riches and niches, and that pinball thing, while that's not our target, and you know, as Roger said, it probably won't bring us as much money as a customer like Boeing or Halliburton or other manufacturers. What's interesting is that there's a certain segment of the market, kind of like the pinball industry, that they can't find the parts anymore. And we've had a lot of conversations in the back about this, right? That 1980s pinball machine that needs to get redone, and you know, the guy's a millionaire and he just wants it back because he was in you know, grammar school with that thing, and he's willing to pay anything for that part. It's a perfect application, and we found several niches like this, you know, whether it's, for example, restoration of old vehicles, right, or restoration of the Ferrari. You can't go to AutoZone and buy that part for your Ferrari, right? You're gonna have to remake that part, or your 1930 Corvair, right, whatever the car is. So that the pinball industry is just one of many industries that, you know, there's niches where they need these parts, they're not making them anymore, and at the end of the day, it's all parts. Right, pinball, airplanes, cars, trains, it's all parts. It's all parts, and we make parts. So it is exciting to see that, and I'm sure Roger had fun. I wish I was there.
Well, that's great, Nick. Thank you for that. But the other thing that's a really interesting point that you want to remember in manufacturing, a lot of companies set up and they're dedicated to the oil and gas industry or the airplane industry or the waterworks department. In additive manufacturing, everyone, that Studebaker door handle, that pinball flipper lever, that tooling piece for the aircraft motor, the food machine processing part, they can all be in one build box. And that's really interesting itself, because there's really no tooling costs. But the real beauty of that is we're diversified amongst many industries. If something happens and they outlaw automobiles tomorrow, if you're making automobile parts, it doesn't really matter. You know, we can turn quite quickly and grab business from another sector, because every sector can use additive manufacturing parts.
Yeah, and I think you actually had some slides that you wanted to show us of some things that you guys have been working on. If you want to pull that up.
Is that the ones I was? Well, oh, you don't want to see. There's your JCP. We don't want to talk about that one right yet. But
but actually, that actually go back to that first. We can actually talk about that if you want.
That's on my desktop because I'm working on that. Every day. Yeah. So the JCP is in.
That's huge. This is huge, guys.
Yeah. This is the JCP, and I don't know if anybody's filled out. It's like writing a book report for the government, doing the paperwork here. And, you know, this application is 17 pages. It references 42 different websites. And this page, you need to understand, when I get this figured out, which is coming really quick, I want 2 gold stars on my forehead. You've got to really pay attention to what's going on here. And there's a lot of procedures that go with this. And it's been a moving target lately. But as you can see by the screen, they finally have it complete. And this is really good for the country because they've really clamped down the last few years about our intellectual property rights and maintaining. As much as a pain in the rear this is, we're going to have a stronger economy overall when this is done for everybody, because they're protecting our data that belongs to us from other people that are bad players, I'd like to say.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's going to be huge. It's going to really open up opportunities, I think.
Absolutely.
So you had some other things you want.
I
sort of derailed you, but that's okay. I saw the JCP certification. I'm like, let's talk about that.
We can drop through all the drop downs here. I can show you the other pictures. Are a lot of fun. You guys are ready for that?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we We print parts for all kinds of industries. Here's one. You'll see us on the front fender. There's our logo. This is a world record-setting land speed motorcycle that's only allowed, they can only race one time a year, and that's at the Salt Flats in Utah, which will be there this year, the first or second week in August. And we've printed parts, we've machined parts. This machine is a 3,000 cc air-cooled V-twin, twin Roots 471 blowers, fuel injected. We're looking at about 1,300 horsepower out of this thing. We're looking for a top speed of around a little over 300 miles per hour. We're battling a group from Australia to get that record on this open air bike. But I'll walk you through a couple photos here. The reason I had this photo bank put together, I'm working with Peter Zielinski and Stephanie Hendrickson, which I met about 4 weeks ago back in Chicago at the Rapid event, about having only additive manufacturing people sponsor this bike. I'm not sure it'll happen this year, but it might next year. So we're going to look at carbon fiber printed fenders. Here you see a picture of the intake. That's a 3D metal printed intake manifold that we did here at 3DX. Another shot of both those intake manifolds. A couple more pieces, some of the machine components. It gives you this bike is probably 12 feet long, and it's massive. It's a beautiful work of art. Anybody that understands horsepower in manufacturing would love to stand next to this thing. When this thing fires up, the whole building shakes.
Yeah.
Wow.
When are we expecting to see this thing in action? Because I want to, I want to be able to see this.
Yeah, this thing will be, you'll be able to see that in August. Speed Week in August. That's where we run this thing. So
they bring it to the Salt Flats in Utah.
It takes 8 miles to get up to speed and slow down. So there's not a lot of places we can run it. We run in the garage once in a while where you see it.
Hey, so are you also considering maybe stuff like, for example, e-bikes or electric bikes as well, Roger? Or is that a possibility?
Yeah, no, we've recently talked to an e-bike company. There's a local company that trades on the NASDAQ, Vicinity Motorworks, an electric bus manufacturing company. There's all bits and pieces and brackets for that we talk to all the time. And those are very real things. Copper, even though copper prices, they don't make any sense to me, but there's electric motors and everything now. And there's more electric motors in cars, airplanes, buses, boats, and all those parts, all those components need some special little metal component that we'll find which ones we need, and we can 3D metal print them. It opens up more things for us to print, which is awesome.
It was great. Excellent. I'm going to go to the chat. Let's OTC Forever. Excuse my ignorance. Could you talk about possible future revenue goals for 2023 and 2024?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely
There you
not.
asked that question, OTC Forever.
of
I got
course.
shout out to OTC Forever. He's been a supporter for a long time.
Yeah. He's actually, I'm pretty sure I engaged with him a few times on Twitter. So thanks for stopping by, man. Roger, you want to touch that? You want me to take that?
Well, yeah, as much as possible. There's a lot of moving pieces, and we're just finishing up some things in our print lab that allow us to greatly increase our revenues, which, I'm not going to say any numbers that everybody can look at it. We're a public company. We do have the opportunity to do a large volume of work out of this building. We have the support equipment, and we have 2 of the 3D metal printers, which number 1 is fully up to speed. Number 2 will be in the next few weeks. And as we put that together, we will start filling those build boxes up. And my outside financial person that I work with has run the numbers. He's been with us for 5 years. He says, if you look at standard manufacturing, you're looking at $75 to $150 an hour per machine tool in subtractive. Mm-hmm. And it looks like we're going to average well over probably $2,000 an hour on these printers. Wow. On whatever jobs that are running around with a less labor cost. Correct. So what's our future revenue goals? As fast as I can get those things up to that, I live every day when I wake up, I think, how can I get that machine fully booked? And that's
exactly. And there's 2 of them.
That road. And there's 2 of them. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's about securing those contracts, securing those deals.
And we have all those
applying for. No, go ahead.
Sorry. We have, I'm very active in the industry. I hit the trade shows. I've been doing this a little while. You can see the hair color changing. I have some of the best contacts available in manufacturing in North America. No doubt about it. So
So stay tuned. I have a feeling we're gonna hear a lot from you guys in the coming months. So that's great. Michael Singleton, you're late.
It's
What the
okay,
hell?
Michael. It's okay,
What's up,
Michael.
Michael? I just want to give a shout out to him. All right, let's get to we have to have a Sam Aker question, of course.
Of course.
Have you seen additional customer interest directly related to manufacturing, nearshoring, geopolitical concerns in Eastern Europe and Asia?
Okay, nearshoring, lots of activity. A little bit in Eastern Europe. I actually talked to somebody in Chicago. That's something I never really thought about before, but he says, you might want to be interested in looking at putting a facility, which a lot of companies do, in Europe, because what do we like here in the US? We like parts made in the USA, and Europe is very similar. Asia has done a great job of getting us lower priced products, but everybody's had their day when the thing they brought broke that afternoon, so it's just, that's the nearshoring. It's coming on strong, and you're going to have to use technology to be able to nearshore, because just because you bring that part back from Asia because they took it over there because it was 5 times cheaper to produce, you're not going to get 5 times more of the money for it when you bring it back, because that market's already established. You might get twice the money, so you got to figure out how to still make profit on that. And what are you going to do that with? Technology. So yes, the nearshoring, there is a lot of nearshoring opportunities, and there is some from Asia also.
And Sam Aker followed up. Go figure.
Yep.
As a smaller company for now, how do you remain price competitive with more limited purchasing power for inputs due to smaller purchase volumes versus bigger companies?
I think I know what he's asking here.
Mm-hmm.
How do you remain? So the truth is, there's not a lot of competition. That's the big truth is that we don't have. So when you talk about pricing, let me reread this so I make sure. By the way, Sam, thank you so much for your analysis. I see your analysis on Twitter, and you do an awesome job just breaking down companies in general, not just our company. But I appreciate you for that.
And Sam's going to be back on the show. I think next Wednesday. Are we doing this next Wednesday, Sam? I hope we
Sam,
are.
say yes. So
yes.
he says,
say yes. Say yes,
please.
please.
Say
Sam
yes.
Aker Finance, please. No, he's great to have on the show, and it's going to be more regular, because I think people learning to break down these filings and understand what they're investing in is very, very important. And you know what? You can find negative things in a filing. That doesn't mean the company's garbage. That just means that somebody may have some things to work on. So
no, I love his DD. Hold on, go back. Sorry.
Okay,
that's exactly. Okay,
that's exactly. Okay, here you go.
Okay. I know exactly. So he's saying, how do we remain competitive when we don't have large purchasing power, like for material, like your metals? For us, it's our powders, right? So the truth is, what he's basically saying is, if we're GE, we can buy powder in bulk. It would be cheaper, and because we're smaller, our pricing on powder or our inputs, our material costs are a little bit higher. How do we stay competitive? Well, the truth is, there's not a lot of competition for metal 3D printing. So the truth is, we don't truly have to be competitive with a competitor, because it hasn't eclipsed the market yet. So a lot of our customers are still transferring over to additive through DFAM, which I think Roger can explain more about. But the truth is, the market is so wide open and so fresh. It's like basically saying, how can you be competitive for search when there's other searchers out there back in 1995 when the search was going to dominate, right? The internet was going to dominate. So the truth is, it's so wide open. The field is so wide open that we remain competitive, even with the raw material prices maybe not being fractionally or marginally lower. But the truth is, there's not a lot of buyers in that market. So people aren't getting that much of a deal, somewhere else from buying, 100 million pounds of powder. And the truth is, no one's buying 100 million pounds of powder right now. We're still in this fresh industry. But correct me if I'm wrong, Roger.
We might buy 2,000 pounds of powder at a time, and we get a certain price on that. We try to get the best price we can. But if GE is buying 35,000 pounds of powder at the same time, the delta on that isn't that much difference. And the other thing with additive manufacturing, since we're not wasting material like from subtractive side, believe it or not, the material price difference in the part, it's not as significant as if I have to buy a 10-pound block of steel and machine that down to a 2-pound part. Because if I make a 2-pound part, I only use 2 pounds worth of powder. And I don't know if that kind of helps understand the difference between the purchasing power versus the metal cost on an additive manufacturing part. Hope that clears that up a little bit.
Awesome. I think that does. Sam, thanks for the great questions.
By the way, Sam, just to follow up on that, I think at the point when it does matter, in the future, call it 10, 15 years, we will be ordering in bulk. So I don't think it'll matter as much in the future when, we do have to compete with those guys, because I think, we will be ordering in bulk. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate you, man.
All right, and Brian, we did talk about JCP certification. Could you guys address quickly the canceled shares? I know that you did on Twitter, and in a letter, a shareholder letter. So if you guys just want to clarify that.
Yeah, I'll grab that. What do you call it? The canceled shares is just us, being stringent with our cap structure. We did a private round of financing between some shareholders, existing shareholders, and a lot of them from Twitter. So big shout out to Twitter, big shout out to YouTube, big shout out to social media. We love engaging with our shareholders. We love bringing our shareholders back in to the investment. So we brought in some investors to make some upgrades to our 3D print lab. And we didn't want to not that we had a huge cap structure, but Roger was gracious enough to cancel his personal shares. By the way, go find me another OTC CEO or CEO in general that does that. But his personal shares, to make sure that our share structure stayed under 100 million. So that was the whole point of the canceled shares. But basically, it's just us being super conscious about our cap structure, about our share structure, and wanting to show our investors, hey, we care, right? We're not just going to dilute. We're not just going to issue shares without reason. So that's what the share cancellation was all about.
Yeah, everybody watching that right now in the chat section, share this video. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. I mean, this is what we do here at the BFC. It's about the people, not the ticker price all the time. All right, it's about the people building these businesses in these smaller companies at the time, because you guys are going to grow. I'm totally rooting for you guys. So seriously. But yeah, share this video, get this out there, and it's not just this video particularly, but this is what I'm trying to grow on the BFC is actually, sharing of information and quality information, not just saying, boom, this is a price point, buy the stock now. I want to know what I'm investing in. And quite frankly, we're in a bear market. I want to find as many great companies that are thriving and trying to thrive and build a business, while we're pulling back a little bit. So, that's just positioning ourselves as investors.
Eric, big shout out to you, by the way, because being in the sector for quite a few years now, it's very rare to find people on Twitter or YouTube or that care about what the companies are doing. A lot of guys on Twitter, are just promoting the stock price and pump. Let me see if I can get this thing to double the price so I can unload, and then they're on to the next ticker. And I know if you've been following me, I'm a big adamant proponent of what does the company do? Right? Is there a real company? Because when you buy stock in a company, you're buying stock in a business. So you always want to find out what's the business underneath the company. So big shout out to you for actually caring to know that, because it's one of my biggest things is make sure you're buying companies, not just stocks. There's a big difference. And 3DX is definitely an awesome company. I'll be there. I'm flying out at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning to go to the investor shareholder meeting on Friday. And I'll post more pictures of the shop. We have tons of pictures of the shop on Twitter, but to show you guys that a real business exists, and a business with a lot of growth potential. So thank you for shedding the light on the humans behind
anytime. Seriously, well, and that's what we're going for, and that's what I want to share. And unfortunately, Sam Aker doesn't agree. Boo! Give me rocket ships, charts, Bugattis, and explosions.
That's great.
He's the ball buster of the channel. That's why I love this guy.
Message understood. Yeah.
Got it. Well, you know what? Hold on. I'm gonna hold on. Don't follow up on Sam Aker. Make sure you follow us for the pictures of tanks. We definitely got tanks. we got tanks. So if you want boom boom, it sounds like you want boom boom. We got pictures of tanks, and obviously you saw the race bike. So
I was gonna say that's
a huge ass race bike. We'll be shooting those rocket ships down.
That's great.
Michael does have a question. I'm gonna get to a couple of questions. I know you guys are busy, but I want to get to a couple more questions here. There are variables in every unit, but how many products can you print per day on average with only 2 machines? Or how many machines do you currently have? They do have 2 machines. They mentioned that earlier.
We have 2 machines, and there are variables. And in products, just as I learned back in the investor symposium back in IMTS with AMT, they have the data from 26,000 manufacturing companies in the United States. 76% of all parts made in North America are fit in a 6 by 6 inch cube. So our build boxes are 10 by 10 by 14 inches, but we never know. Our jobs vary from parts the size of your fingernail up to the size of an exhaust flange for a heavy lift drone for Amazon. So if I had to average that out, I guess my best way to help understand this, I can print 1 inch deep of powder in 4 hours on one machine. And in that 1 inch deep, I can have 1,000 parts or I can have 10. So it's all relative to the part piece that counts. So
now let me translate that into layman's terms, okay? Because there are a lot of engineering talk. There's a box. How big is the box, Roger?
10 inches by 10 inches by 14 is like a really big bread box.
Exactly. So 10 inches by 10 inches by 14. This box is filled with powder. We can print either one part in that box that's 12 by 12 by 14, right? Or we can print a bunch of 1 inch parts or smaller parts. But what the most interesting thing that I found, that I, as a layman, and my background's in finance, so when I learned this stuff, it was double shocking for me, some of these things I learned. But in that box, you can print 100 parts, and the value of those parts could be $5 or it could be $5,000 per part, right? So, and each part could be different, which is totally, it almost hurts your brain to try to comprehend that. You know, in this box, you could print 12 rings, 50 money clips, 100 bolts, and still have space for another 100 parts. And that's on one machine. So, you know, when you talk about going through the process, and that's in one cycle, by the way, and each machine can run, you know, depending on the complexity, might be able to run 2 times a day, 3 times a day, 4 times, depending on the complexity. So how many products can you print per day with only 2 machines? The answer is tens of thousands, depending on what we're putting in there and what size the parts are, right? Literally tens of thousands, which is, to wrap your head around that, right? A subtractive machine does 1 part at a time, right? So to do tens of thousands on one machine, it's the comparables are, it's insane. It's really insane, the capabilities, and it really matters. So for example, we were looking at security screws. So when you talk about security screws, like, you know, the screws with different heads, if you ever seen a Richard Mille watch, $1 million watch, they have these tiny little screws that have a different head on it, which you need a special screwdriver, which, by the way, you have to make the screwdriver, right? And the screw. We can do both. And in that box, we can probably, like, for example, let's use the Richard Mille watch. I mean, 10,000, 20,000 screws at one time in one build. So that's hopefully that answers the question. So it's a large number, and it varies based on the size, but compared to traditional manufacturing, 10,000x. It's not even 100x. I know Roger's going into his bag of tricks. He's going to find something right now.
Just real quickly here. This is, I want to say, this is an average size part that fits in my hand.
Okay.
If you wanted to get an idea, I can probably print 600 of these in a box. But this, if I had to pull an average on it, let's go with that. There you go.
By the way, that's one person working that machine, turns it on and walks away.
Unbelievable.
Right. So
And you know what? You know, and to follow up, because I know I know that you guys have until about 9 o'clock. You know, John Don, I think this sort of answers the questions. That $2,000 an hour was the practical payback timeline per machine. And he goes on how positive our lenders willing to support this venture. So are you going to need a lot of lending for this? And, you know, like where are you at with that? It doesn't seem like it's going to be contract based, I would think, right?
Yeah, for as far as the, you know, our printers are currently, we're paid for with our equipment right now. As we expand, we'll look at different financing tools that will make sense.
Yeah, so I'll answer that. I'll kind of touch that. So you guys can do the math yourselves. I mean, the total operation is set. How much did our 2 machines cost? The total operation, Roger?
I think we're at about $3.5 million in assets right now. So
exactly. So, you know, once we get that dialed in, I think, you know, $1 million per setup is probably going to be around the number where we're at. So you guys can do the math on how long that takes us to run back at $200 an hour. And again, that's a conservative projection, guys, that $200 an hour, because we're not factoring in that box is filled with some crazy part like Richard Mille security screws.
That's 2,000 an hour, Nick. Sorry to correct you.
2,000 an hour. Okay, so I'm sorry. So John got that wrong. 2,000 an hour. And then I think how positive are lenders willing to support this venture? When you get a contract from a Boeing or Department of Defense, there's no trouble financing that, right? So just keep that in mind. So if that's what he's asking, right, there's absolutely no trouble financing purchase orders, as long as they come from credible buyers or manufacturers. So, if GE turned around tomorrow, or if Ford came tomorrow and, placed a $2 million purchase order. And by the way, if you're out there, Ford, call me. I know the CEO. I follow the CEO on Twitter. Call us. We can definitely help you out. But there's no problem financing those orders. So, if it comes from a big enough supplier, the lenders are willing to support the venture.
Thank you very much for answering that question. I appreciate it. Let's see. And I got it right.
What?
All right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. He got it
so yeah. I want to sort of finish up here. I want to give you guys a chance for final thoughts. And Harold, let's start with you, sir.
All right. Yeah, so we're definitely focused and locked in on getting our JCP cert approved, so that this way we can revisit and also continue the relationship building that we have in place with federal government agencies, especially the DLA.
Mr. Coriano.
Yeah, so I mean, while they work on the operations side, I'll kind of go back to the stock side or the public company side. I'm consistently encouraging our employees, our board members, to buy more stock. So we are buying the stock on the open market. We're not just compensated through restricted shares, even though that's how we're all compensated. Restricted shares, we're all long-term shareholders. So we're long-term believers in the company. We appreciate all the shareholders. And if you're a shareholder and haven't reached out, I encourage you guys to reach out. If you have any questions, you can hit us on Twitter or on Facebook, or just call the office. We have a real office with real people there. We'll answer, and we appreciate all you guys.
Roger Jansen, go ahead, sir.
I want to say, I get excited. I want to appreciate all you guys for being on our team. Eric, Nick, Harold, everybody involved. As a CEO, you need to have a support network behind you. And I love working with all these guys. And it makes getting up exciting that day and going attacking business, because I know I got guys behind me that can make it happen.
Right on. And I want to say sincere thank you for coming on the BFC and giving the little guy some excellent content here, because you guys are I'm rooting for you. I'm invested in you, and good luck. And guys, this is 3DX Industries. Thank you very, very much.
All right.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, Jord, it's just you and me. What's going on, brother?
I'm just really looking forward to seeing and meeting all of them in person at the annual shareholders meeting this week. Happy to be a shareholder. I love, like you were saying earlier, early adoption is ideal, but early adoption of companies that, again, you're always taking a risk, but companies that have the ability to grow into something much larger in a recession, a crash, or any other macro economic condition that makes them especially juicy for future valuations. I mean, you're not overpaying when everything's down 60 to 70%. So yeah, I just think they have a really bright future, and I really think that that their business model has the ability to scale up and do some pretty amazing things without having a lot of competition west of the Mississippi.
Yeah, that was a very interesting point that they made. But it's good to hear your voice on the BFC, brother. Listen, to everybody in the chat, what are we talking about? I'm not prepared. This is just let's go. I want to talk about a couple stocks before I sign off. I do. So, and I know you guys want me to talk about Ilist, man. I made you wait till the end, but you know what? I had to dangle the fruit a little bit. But seriously, welcome, and I hope you guys are having a good time. That was awesome. I absolutely love sitting down with Nick and Roger, and it was great to finally have Harold on. I'm just excited about the 3DX investment, and Jordan, this is a joint venture, and I'm pretty excited for it for both of us, man.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like I said, there's just so much to be excited about right now. Everything's been falling for about a year since we switched from the bull market to the bear market, and right now Ilist keeps dropping news seemingly every other day. There's just a lot of exciting stuff to to talk about. Does anybody have questions? You want to go right into Ilist?
I think we should go right into Ilist. I mean, this is some pretty good news. We're following up one good company with another. And by the way, I have some production help, and I want to give a shout out to, and he's not going to show his face today, but I'm eventually going to get him on the show. Producer Rob, who has absolutely been helping me with some of those intros that you guys see. That is all Rob, and you're going to get a chance to meet him in a couple weeks. And he's an Ilist shareholder too. I'm not going to tell you which one he is yet, though. So
thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. And so he's done a great job, and I look forward to doing some more work with him in the future. So, Rob, if you could pull out the Ilist tweet and throw that thing up on the screen. This was a great tweet. Yes. Ilist International, following previous communication regarding tangible value for Ilist shareholders and the uplisting of QIND, which I asked about on my show. I did bring that up. Our board and council are meeting on June 16th, 2023, with plans to discuss and finalize the type of dividend and process for Ilist shareholders of record. And yeah, that's that. There it is. Let's go to the PR. Let's go to the Ilist PR. All right. Here it is. Ilist International is a mergers and acquisitions. We know what they are. We know what they do. Anybody that follows this channel knows my passion for Ilist. All right. The uplist discussions for Ilist subsidiaries and the company proper have piqued Wall Street's interest and paved the way for an invitation to an interview on the New York Stock Exchange floor. This is absolutely huge. The New York Stock Exchange floor interview is set for June 15th, 2023. The interview will be released to the public on June 26th, 2023. And I'm going to be all over that, and I'm going to be sharing that on this channel. Very, very happy about this. Some of the topics to be discussed during the interview include QIND, New York Stock Exchange uplist status, and benefit to Ilist shareholders and corporate bottom line. Ilist International incorporates QB status and uplist to a national stock exchange, current and future acquisition subsidiaries, and investment plans. JP Backwell, Ilist managing director, will be representing Ilist on the floor of the NYSE. Mr. Backwell has 25 years experience in the development and leadership of global business, predominantly in the fields of public safety, manufacturing, and distribution, with a focus on disruptive technology. Let's get a quote from Nick Link here. Our rapid and sustainable growth, global reach, and corporate roadmap have brought the Ilist family of companies to this juncture. We look forward to expanding the marketplace, understanding of Ilist International, and I can't think of anyone better than JP Backwell to bring his corporate knowledge to investors from the New York Stock Exchange floor. That is Nick Link. So there you go, and there you have it. That is absolutely awesome news. Now, unless you are Cranky Pants McGee, you're very, very excited. You don't have to be excited about the share price, all right? And you guys could rib on me all you want, because I'm invested in the fundamentals of this company. I've met these people in person, all right? I've went to shareholder meetings. George, you've been to the shareholder meetings. They're quality individuals. It's a legitimate business. They're doing everything that they said they were going to do. It wasn't going to Dogecoin you. It wasn't going to. This wasn't this isn't going to be like, oh yeah, we're just going to ride the pump and that's it. Well, you saw what everything did in the economy. You were just talking about it, George. Everything pulled back. And I hate to use a stupid Dogecoin reference, but these guys are putting their money where their mouth is. In that first shareholder meeting, George, you were there. They laid out how they're going to launch and do spinoffs and launch subsidiaries to the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. They said they were going to do that. So, I mean, George, your thoughts on this? Are you excited? Because I'm excited. I'm fired up, dude.
Yeah, I mean, excited is probably an understatement. You don't have to read more than a few lines of anything I write on the Discord to see how excited I am. But yeah, I mean, really a big, as you were talking, I was kind of laughing, thinking about the P.T. Barnum quote about, you can fool all the people some of the time and some of the people all the time. And as they keep growing and acquiring new companies and bringing in, like you're saying, more skilled managers and officers, it's just becomes so obvious to anybody paying attention that what their intentions are. And of course, they still have a lot of hurdles to battle, which is what I believe was the major cause of the delays from their previous timelines and what it is. They're still looking to accomplish what they were looking to accomplish before, but obviously it was slowed down a little bit. Based on that last tweet, there's been a ton of speculation, wondering what the dividends will compose of, whether, it be cash, which I don't think it'll be that because it doesn't make a lot of sense. I even thought possibly they could be using some of the restricted shares to buy QND on the market, which they already said they were going to do, in which case they could disseminate that in some way to the Ilist shareholders. But what I really think it's going to be now, especially since they've all but said that they look forward to having ERT and QIND uplist this year, with the possibility of Ilist uplisting this year. Just my own opinion, when they said they were getting ready to uplist QIND, I put 2 years, conservatively on Ilist being uplisted, because I figured that everything was delayed. But what now I believe is that they've pivoted. And so I think the dividends that we'll be receiving will be in the form of ERT shares, since that's the private entity, and QIND being the public entity. It seems less likely, since they, have a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders of that company to make sure they do the best by them. But the one thing that I know over and over again, having had the luxury of meeting all of them and hanging out and talking and getting to have those spontaneous conversations, is that whatever they decide to do, it's going to be in the best interest of all the shareholders. It's going to be exciting, and it's going to cause a fervor like we haven't seen in the OTC in a year, because whether they do an IPO, an SPV, raise money privately, there's so many possibilities. They could merge the QIND and ERT together, but I also don't think they're going to do that. That it's just going to be fantastic. And now that we have these dates, like you said, the meeting on the 15th, and then the news being disseminated to us on the 26th, that I'm just buying as much as I could possibly buy before that date hits. And they did throw another breadcrumb out there about the record date, and I don't know if that'll be retroactive and you will have had to have owned it by a certain date. It seems to me the most likely that they will say something like by July 4th or something, some date after the actual announcement, whatever that actual date ends up being. But I think it bodes very well for the Ilist long shareholders and investors, that it really looks like some exciting stuff's going to be happening pretty soon here. And I can't wait. I absolutely can't wait.
And don't they have like a $250 million in and out right now? Is that, if I'm correct? I might be wrong, but we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. But this is where I like, sort of like when I argue with people. Not argue with you, when I don't argue. I always talk civilly. That's a lie. I'm just kidding. Because I'm passionate about my investments. But I gotta say, let's think about this. All right, you got QIND. Quality International, another acquisition in the works. That's just one. And look at the numbers of that company. If you're invested in QIND, look at the filings. Then you're talking about ERT with another $50 million possible acquisition, which it could open up another potential acquisition. And then you talk about, and that's a whole nother part of Ilist. Then you talk about Hyperion. It's younger. But they have a lot in the works. They're working on contracts. They're working on things. They're working on, like, they've already had some PRs. I'm going to go back and we'll do a little more DD on that. But and then you're talking about Replay Solutions. So if you if they continue at this magnitude, is that the right word? I don't know if that's the right word. If they keep,
sure.
Yeah, if they keep multiplying, you are talking about $1 billion conglomerate. All right. And no, I'm not saying $1 billion profit. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about you will have, look at the order book for QIND. If that's indicative of what they're going to be doing with these other companies, especially with their renewables, which practically doesn't exist right now. All right. And I know Nick talked about this at the shareholder meeting. He was talking about basically all the electronic. I should have brought this up to Roger, actually. But all those, the metal being used in those things. The fact that we have money in our drawers in phones, in these phones. Like, how many of you guys have broken phones laying around your house? It's an untapped industry right now. They're not.
It's actually becoming quite a problem too, because up until pretty recently, what we would do is they would just bundle all this stuff together in connexes and then ship it over to other countries where the environmental laws are a lot more lax. And so what they would do is they would essentially just burn this stuff down in open pits and try to reclaim, anything precious that they could. But as that's exceptionally bad for not only the people's health, but also the environment, they're really starting to get away from that. And so anybody that I forget the number is 200 or 260 grams per ton of precious metals when it's traditionally only 5 grams in regular ore. That it's crazy, the cost effectiveness of it, because there's going to be subsidies and there's going to be other ways that you can actually decrease the amount of money that you have to put into it. Very much like Ilist getting the subsidies from Serbia, because Serbia wants to be a leader in EV tech. They have the ability because of the ease of getting contractors and workers in the European Union, and they already have the technical skills and expertise that most automotive manufacturers already have manufacturing spots there. And so they know, looking into the future, that there's a really, really strong possibility that that business by itself could blow up. But one of the things I really kind of always go back to as a reference is one of the slides they showed at the last annual shareholders meeting. And it actually shows, Hyperion and then an ERT, and it'll say like ERT2, ERT3, and it doesn't tell you exactly what the companies are that they're acquiring, but I think it gives you some generalizations about approximately what kind of revenues they're looking at. And so again, what I think is going to happen when all this news drops is people keep kind of nitpicking. Oh, well, they haven't changed the name. They haven't done this. They haven't done that. And my understanding, based on things that Nick and JP have said, is that they don't want to have each one of these individually good pieces of news get lost in the void, or have them just go and fritter out and have the share price not really respond. And so they're kind of saving all this stuff up. And one of the luxuries they have is that, being private companies, they don't have to run out the same way they would with QIND and say, oh, we closed this deal, we have to announce it right now. So I think they're just stockpiling all kinds of good news and acquisitions and this and that, so that when they finally do decide to drop the news and bring it up, that they're not going to have any issues getting the share price to go up. And that's not even counting them buying back their own shares or using any other capital that they gained from the uplist process. Right
on, man. Well, listen, guys, it has been absolutely real. Tactical reviews. I got to laugh. These Oreos are stale, but good. And hopefully we will all be eating more Oreos. I know that's what we do on those green days. But, Jordan, thanks for joining. I truly appreciate it, man. And we'll be in touch. And guys, there is so much happening. There's so many good companies out there to invest in. If you know somebody that's investing, tell them to jump on one of these lives on Wednesday at 8. I'm going to always keep it Wednesday at 8 o'clock. Consistency is great. So that's all I got. Jordan, thank you very, very much for joining.
No, thanks for having me. And like I said, give a shout out to the Discord and all the hard work they do. It's difficult. And I just like Nick said, I think it's very much appreciated that you focus on the people and the businesses, because the money, while it's great, it's really just a way of keeping score. It's not, if this is the only reason you're doing this is for money, then, there's faster, quicker things in the world that you could be chasing down. But if you're looking for something where there's an actual ability to do something larger than just make a profit, I think Ilist definitely fits that bill. And in 3 to 4 years, there's no way it's not going to be worth much more money than it is today. But they're also building a company that's saving lives and changing people's lives for the better, right?
Hell yeah. Monster conglomerate. All right, you take care, brother.
You too. Thanks for having me.
The great Jordan Hugga. Always awesome having him on. Guys, stay well. We're going to do live next Wednesday again, and I'm going to have Sam Aker on. Yeah, you heard it. He's going to jump on, and we're going to break down some filings, and we're going to talk about a bunch of stocks and have an open chat, just like we are now. So listen, stay well, and remember, there's more that binds us than breaks us, guys. Have a good one.